We are the Adlers Access team and we will be looking into the eastern corner of our site. Here you can see exactly where our site is located within the bigger site plan. Our routes are based on the sculpture route of campus and how it connects within the bigger context. We have 4 main sculptures on our site on which we did our interventions around.
The Adlers Access region is on the most eastern corner of the Hatfield campus. Many students travel through this region on their way to class or to frequent some of the restaurants in this area, such as Adlers or the Vida Cafe. As the previous groups, we went to the area to do some analysis to determine nodes and linear spaces in our region. The main way students enter this area is by the London Road gate, and then they disperse over the entire site. On the perspective of our region, we have identified the primary and secondary spaces. The primary spaces are where we will most likely do our interventions.
Here are some of the opportunities and constraints that we identified on our site. Some of our opportunities are to increase user engagement, edible green infrastructure, and amount of green infrastructure. Also to improve quality of spaces and guide users through our region and connecting to other regions. Some of our constraints is minimal user engagement, current infrastructure brings restrictions, interventions require maintenance, and also there is a limited space and funds for interventions. Here are some of the symbols that we use to analyze our nodal areas, linear spaces, and constructed green infrastructure. They include the quality and condition, indigenous or exotic vegetation, edible or inedible plants, permeability percentage, material of surfaces, wheelchair accessibility, and also includes user engagement, ecosystem services, green network connection, tree cover percentage, and the constructed green infrastructure. Now moving on to our primary nodes, linear and constructed green infrastructure that we identified. This is the Natural and Agricultural Sciences lawn, which is our primary node. It consists of the following qualities: good quality hard and softscapes, indigenous vegetation, 75 to 100% permeability. It is an active space which includes some of the ecosystem services including cultural, regulating, supporting and provisioning. It is part of a green corridor and has a 75 to 100% vegetation cover. This is the Natural and Agricultural Sciences Avenue, which is identified as our primary linear space. Some of the qualities include good, hard and softscapes, indigenous vegetation, 75 to 100% permeability. It is an active space as well and includes some of the ecosystem services including regulating, supporting and provisioning. It is a green corridor and has a 75 to 100% vegetation cover and no constructed green infrastructure. This is the ring road at the Law Building, which is identified as another primary linear space. It includes a good quality hard and softscapes, alien vegetation including jacaranda, no edible green infrastructure, a 0 to 25% permeability. It is, although an active space consisting of regulating and supporting ecosystem services, but only has a 0 to 25% vegetation cover percentage. This is the green wall at the Plant Sciences Building, which is identified as another primary green infrastructure, which consists of good quality hard and softscapes, indigenous vegetation with edible leaves, only a 25 to 50% permeability percentage. It is an inactive space, but consists of regulating, supporting, and provisioning ecosystem services. It is part of a green corridor and has a 50 to 75% vegetation cover percentage.
Moving on to the secondary nodes. These nodes are less prominent in terms of hierarchy and user engagement, but still form part of the campus interface and still serves a purpose in terms of green infrastructure. We started off analyzing Faculty Avenue as our first secondary linear space. This area has an active user engagement from students going between classes, vehicles moving through the space, and visitors entering from the nearby gate. This space has a good intervention possibility as it is pedestrian and vehicle friendly. There are currently no edible green infrastructure and is located on one of our main routes connecting to the other regions. The NAS lawn is a vital gathering space on campus for students going to classes, people visiting the 3 surrounding coffee shops and restaurants, and pedestrians entering the site from the gate. The space has an active user engagement and is filled with indigenous and edible indigenous vegetation. The area has a high permeability percentage because of the big lawn area. The first constructed green infrastructure we looked at was a green sculpture located near the Ludden Gate. This would be defined as a successful intervention as the vegetation is healthy and in good condition. It is a type of succulent garden, so no edible green infrastructure is present.
Moving on to the plant sciences complex, a building that seems to be quite isolated as it is pushed into the very eastern corner of the university. While doing our analysis, we came across this good example of a constructed EGI. This wall is filled with spackbome and seems to be well maintained, adding to the ecosystem services of this area. Just next to the entrance of the plant sciences complex are these benches. This is largely an inactive space, but definitely adds to the overall GI of the complex. On the opposite side of the complex is another example of constructed GI. Sadly, this green wall is not maintained as the soil seems to be falling out of the wall. The wall does add to the ecosystem services but needs attention. This space does not provide any GI, EGI or ESS and is also an inactive space. This area acts as a transitory space for many students and has the potential to create a place that students want to spend time in. Between the boundary of the university and the plant sciences building, we have a small tree avenue that creates some ESS. It is not an active space, but does contribute to the overall GI of the campus. Looking at the law complex just north of the plant sciences building, there is a large parking lot that has resulted in an unmaintained and undervegetated space, and we plan to propose interventions on this site. The pedestrian route along Ring Road is a very active space as there are many students that use the space traveling to lectures, tests and the law library. Due to the amount of students that utilize the space, we chose it as one of the spaces for our interventions. Another parking lot contributing to the unmaintained and undervegetated space in our region, also providing a space for possible intervention. The agricultural annex is an inactive space in comparison with the NAS lawn. It is isolated from the rest of the university, but could easily be made more active with some intervention. Across from the agricultural annex is the Leave Theatre. There are some gardens that add to the GI in the area. This area is largely inactive and is mostly used at night when there are performances.
Our part of site is filled with a variety of edible, indigenous and alien vegetation. Here we listed a few so we can analyze our site more accurate and do our interventions accordingly. We looked at proposing a new planting palette. It includes a variety of EGI and indigenous vegetation, with specific note taken of the African orphan crops being introduced. This planting palette also includes basic vegetables such as lettuce, tomato and spinach that when done right can be harvested throughout the year. The seasonal planting palette gives us an indication of how our proposed vegetation will mature and grow throughout the year.
Moving to our interventions. The synthesis of our analysis led us to identify the main areas to propose interventions for. The sites we have chose to intervene on were determined by where it would have the biggest impact and will slot into the route that we as a group have planned out to lead to the Giving Gardens as well as the Javett UP. These areas are Adlers, Faculty Avenue, the Law parking lot, the pathway along Ring Road next to the Law building, and finally the Nass lawn.
Our main movement was influenced by the connection between the sites as well as the sculpture route. This influenced our decision-making process in choosing our intervention areas. Our first intervention is Faculty Avenue. We want to introduce a variety of elements to add more life into the region. By introducing signage boards, it would give the user a better understanding of not only the new vegetation introduced, but also where the path they are on leads to. This is strengthened by the green footpath linking the sculpture route together. The signage boards also includes braille signs for inclusivity and QR codes linking to the previous regions. Permeable paving and indigenous vegetation is implemented to manage water runoff and increase biodiversity. Our next intervention will be at the Nass lawn, as it is a hotspot for students and with the intervention could be more successful. The Natural and Agricultural Science lawn will be one of our main interventions as there is a lot of foot traffic going past. It is a large piece of grass situated in between a few lecture halls and restaurants and coffee shops on campus. By introducing a few green infrastructure elements, it would encourage new life within the space. By utilizing Adlers, the nearby restaurant, we plan to introduce a new garden which they can maintain and manage as part of their food production in their restaurant, and as part of the bigger linking path towards the Giving Gardens and the Javett UP. By introducing a seasonal menu with a variety of crops and African orphan crops, it would also act as an educational node to which the students can engage with. The Eat at UP facility can also utilize the space by having picnics and events at the Nass lawn, encouraging students and visitors to visit the space. By having signage boards, it would help with marketing of the Giving Gardens and the Javett UP, as people would become more aware of the possibilities connected with the vegetation.
For the Nass lawn, we looked at creating a new layout for a largely unutilized lawn. Even though there are always people sitting on the lawn, we wanted to encourage more people to use the space by adding seating, vegetable planters, and GI sculptures. The interventions are also intended to create a place along the route to the Javett and the Giving Gardens where people can get a sense of the plant lab and its intention. The vegetable planters along the lawn is there for students to interact with and to link with the Adlers intervention. The idea of the space is to allow students to relax and engage with their surroundings by creating a rich landscape of vegetation. We are keeping the life-size chess set as it draws a lot of students to the lawn to play and to spectate. We are adding terracing in the landscaping to create multiple nodal spaces along the Nass lawn. Next, we look at the pathway parallel to the Law building on Ring Road. This area has a lot of pedestrian movement, as previously mentioned, which creates the perfect opportunity for intervention. Along the path, we suggest adding a vegetated pergola as it links our region to our neighboring regions. We also suggest adding sculptural interventions and multifunctional seating. This section illustrates the vegetated seating, which allows users to interact, rest, and relax along the walkway. We have also proposed a vegetated pergola along this route. This composition illustrates the application of the vegetated pergola and the space making that the intervention creates alongside the Law building.
This is the next space that we proposed interventions, and it is the parking lot that is situated across from the Law building. It currently does not display any green infrastructure or vegetation, which we propose to change. Here are some examples illustrating what we propose as interventions for the parking lot. The first being permeable paving, which will prevent water runoff and also introduces constructed green infrastructure into the space. The next is introducing drainage rings at the base of the newly introduced indigenous trees, which will also improve the water runoff that the parking lots create. Another intervention that we propose for this area is a bioswale running through the comfortable center of parking spaces. Lastly, we will propose a vegetated pergola near the graduate center at the furthest end of the parking lot to create a more comfortable green space for users to move through the edge of the parking lot. All of these will work in harmony to introduce green infrastructure and create a more environmentally sustainable parking lot. This is a more detailed look at the permeable paving that will be introduced in the parking spaces, which will increase the absorption of water runoff. It will contain grasses within the paving, as well as long grasses between every fourth parking space. This image represents how the parking lot will appear once all of the interventions have been implemented into the space. We can see that there is a newly introduced constructed green infrastructure, indigenous vegetation, as well as many improved ecosystem services within the space. This is a sectional elevation representing the various interventions that have been proposed for the law parking lot and where they are situated. This includes the permeable paving, tree drainage rings, bioswale, indigenous trees, and a vegetated pergola which will be implemented on the furthest end of the parking lot by the graduate center. Now we have a summary of all of the interventions for our site. These panoramic images represent the golden thread that links all of the various nodes, linear, and constructed green infrastructure spaces within our region through the use of intervention. Some of the interventions that are utilized are displayed on these images to further explain the linking pieces throughout our region. We start off with the Faculty Avenue and then move through the Natural and Agricultural Sciences lawn, which contains both our main nodal areas as well as our main linear routes. After moving through the Natural and Agricultural Sciences lawn, we reach the Plant Sciences constructed green wall, which through our analysis is deemed a successful green wall and is highlighted above. Finally, we move onto the ring road by the law building, which also considers the parking lot. All of these proposed interventions will work coherently to achieve many aspects of our objectives identified in our Plant Lab framework. They will also improve the connection between our region to the other regions on the University of Pretoria and Javett UP, and will add many benefits to our linking route from the Javett UP all the way to the Giving Gardens.